This is Kane Titchener from Fluoride Free New Zealand. I've come down from Te Awamutu. I've been working to stop fluoridation for the last 12 years. I'm going to give a brief update on the neurotoxicity of fluoride. I'm going to discuss the origin of the NTP report, major research published, and what it all means. This topic is absolutely huge. Please go to fluoridefree.org.nz and fluoridealert.org, where the Fluoride Action Network is responsible for driving most of this issue around the neurotoxicity. In 2015, the US Health and Human Services, the Ministry of Health equivalent, lowered the recommended level from a range of 0.7 to 1.2 part per million to a single target of 0.7 parts per million. New Zealand at the time had a target of 0.7 to 1 part per million. In December 2015, the National Toxicology Program met to approve a major systematic review of fluoride's neurotoxicity due to the accumulation of fluoride research that consistently showed that fluoride lowered IQ at high and low exposure levels, including a considerable amount of animal research. At the meeting, Dr. Linda Birnbaum, the NTP and National Institutes for Environmental Health Sciences Director, stated regarding fluoride's neurotoxicity that, quote, "We know nothing about the differential susceptibility and vulnerability that occurs within the population." Now that's a technical way of saying we have no idea what fluoride does. Dr. Linda Birnbaum is a hero to this movement. As the NTP review began, fluoride neurotoxicity research began to flood out. BASHASH 2017, a National Institutes of Health funded study, was published. This data set based out of Mexico was using a new methodology of identifying fluoride exposure, which was far more accurate than previous research. BASHASH used 300 mother-child pairs and checked urine samples to identify exposure. The study found a 5 IQ point reduction at 1 part per million. Green 2019, another NIH funded study using a 500 mother-child pair data set from Canada, found a similar result using this methodology. Again, the result was a 5 IQ point reduction. The editors of the Journal of American Medical Association Pediatrics, who published the study, completed additional reviews of the data and the study before publishing. JAMA Pediatrics is one of the top journals in the world. The editors also provided an accompanying 12-minute podcast on the research that everyone here needs to hear. Here is one of the quotes. "The question that needs to be asked to every pediatrician, scientist and epidemiologist is what they're going to tell pregnant women," said Dr. Dimitri Christakis, who says he will advise his pregnant friends and family to avoid fluoridated water. Now, the New Zealand Supreme Court ruled that fluoridation was a compulsory medication, so the only way to avoid fluoridation in New Zealand is to stop fluoridation. Another paper, till 2020, identified that bottle-fed babies with formula reconstituted with fluoridated water had a 9 IQ point reduction on average. The loss could be up to 18 IQ points for some susceptible children. Mother's breast milk has 0.004 parts per million fluoride, incredibly low. Bottle-fed babies at 1 part per million are getting 250 times more fluoride. Have Hastings District Council told residents this? No, it is unconscionable. Goodman 2022 identified that pregnant mothers with inadequate iodine levels had offspring with a 9 IQ point reduction at 1 part per million, and the pregnant mothers with an adequate iodine level had a 5 IQ point reduction. So what did the NTP 6-year review find when it was released to the public in 2023? The NTP found that 52 of 55 human IQ studies found a lowering of IQ at high and low exposure levels, a 95% consistency. They found 18 of 19 high quality studies found a lowering of IQ. The NTP recognised that the highest quality studies were the NIH funded studies that I've mentioned, Green and BASHASH. The aggregate result is that fluoride in the water may be lowering IQ between 3 to 5 IQ points on average in New Zealand and Hastings right now. Compared to lead, there was a 4 IQ point reduction identified by Rubin in 2017. Fluoride is the new lead. So what is the safe level? Dr. Philippe Grandjean, renowned for his work on mercury neurotoxicity, published in 2021 what's called a benchmark concentration level, or BMCL. He used the Mexican and Canadian data sets to identify that at 0.2 parts per million, remember we fluoridate at 0.7 to 1 part per million, there was a lowering of IQ of 1 IQ point across the population. This is the level that the EPA deems to also be unacceptable. In 2023, Grungene updated the BMCL with an additional data set from Denmark, where there are parts of the country with high levels of naturally fluoride in the water. Grungene now has 1,500 mother-child pairs, and the research identified a BMCL of 0.28 parts per million. That's the level where 1 IQ point has dropped across the population. Now, per the EPA guidelines, a safety factor of 10 needs to be applied. Simply, 0.3 parts per million divided by 10 equals 0.03 parts per million. That is the safe level where all at-risk subset groups will be protected, effectively 0. Now, the Ministry of Health says that 1 part per million is safe. This is 33 times higher than 0.03 parts per million, identified by Professor Grungene. It doesn't take a scientist to work out that fluoridation's days are over. With your support to share this information on fluoride, we are at the end. Thank you.